The room was quiet. Too quiet. My wife's chest rose and fell in shallow waves, her skin pale and fragile under the fluorescent hospital lights. Machines beeped softly behind her. I stood at her bedside, trying to hold myself together as I leaned in and kissed her on the forehead. "Goodbye, Emily," I whispered, barely able to speak through the lump in my throat. "I love you. Always." Her lips moved slightly. I couldn't tell if it was a smile or just muscle memory. And then, nothing. A flat line. The heart monitor's tone pierced the silence. Nurses rushed in, gentle yet urgent, checking vitals, confirming what I already knew. My wife, my Emily, was gone. I stumbled back, hands shaking, tears already falling as I walked toward the hallway. But just as I reached the door, I heard it. Two nurses near the foot of the bed. Whispering. "I can't believe she never told him." "Shoo. Not now. But he deserves to know. Especially now." My heart stopped. Know what? I froze in place, listening, my back still turned to them. They didn't know I was still in the room. One of them added, just barely audible, "After all these years, he had no idea he wasn't her only one." What? I turned around slowly, my tears replaced by a surge of something colder. Something sharper. Shock. Betrayal. That I stood there, paralyzed, staring at the nurses as their whispers faded into silence the moment they saw me. One of them, an older woman with kind eyes, blanched. The younger one clutched a clipboard, frozen mid-step. They hadn't meant for me to hear it. That much was clear. "What did you just say?" I asked, my voice a low growl wrapped in disbelief. The younger nurse opened her mouth, then closed it. The older one stepped forward. "Mr. Hayes. I'm so sorry. We didn't mean what?" I snapped. "What exactly didn't you mean for me to hear?" They exchanged a glance. The kind of look people share when the truth is messy and dangerous. Emily. She was a wonderful woman, the older nurse began carefully. But there are things you might want to ask her sister about. Her sister? What does her sister have to do with this? Again, silence. The younger nurse finally spoke. "It's not our place. We really can't say more." I felt like the air had been punched out of my lungs. My wife had just died, and now this? A cryptic hint, a trail of whispers, and suddenly everything I thought I knew about the woman I'd loved for 17 years felt unstable. I left the room in a daze, pushing through the heavy hospital doors into the waiting area. Emily's sister, Rachel, was there. Eyes red. Clutching a tissue. She looked up at me, her expression warm, until she saw my face. Then it turned to dread. "You knew," I said, my voice breaking. Her lips trembled. "Please," she said softly, "not here." My hands were shaking again. But not from grief this time. From the feeling that my entire marriage had just become a question mark. I followed Rachel outside into the parking lot. The late evening sky was smeared with orange and gray, and a heavy silence hung between us like fog. She stood by her car, arms folded, avoiding my gaze. I finally broke the silence. "What did the nurses mean, Rachel? What don't I know?" She looked up, and in her eyes, I saw it, guilt. Not the kind you fake. The kind that's been living inside someone for years. She took a deep breath. "Ethan, there's something Emily never told you. She always said she would, but she didn't. And now it's too late." My throat tightened. "Told me what?" Rachel hesitated, then looked me straight in the eyes. "Your son isn't yours." I took a step back as if she'd hit me. What the hell are you talking about?" "I mean biologically," she said, her voice cracking. "He was the result of something that happened a long time ago. Before you were married. Before she even met you, actually. But she kept it hidden. She was scared. I blinked, trying to process the words. My legs felt weak. But I was there. I was there when she gave birth. I raised him. We raised him together. I know, Rachel whispered. And Emily loved you. She truly did. But she made a decision to never tell you the truth. She thought protecting the family was more important than honesty. I clenched my fists. My ears were ringing. Everything felt unreal. I gave her everything, I muttered. Every part of me. And she took that to her grave. Rachel looked down. She made me promise I wouldn't say anything unless she passed. Now I understood the nurse's whisper. Now I understood the weight in Rachel's eyes. And yet, it wasn't over. Something inside me knew this wasn't the full story. That I leaned against the hood of her car, breathing hard. My world had tilted on its axis. She lied to me, I said, mostly to myself. All these years, and she let me believe that he was yours, Rachel finished gently. But Ethan, you were his father. In every way that matters. I shook my head. No. Don't do that. Don't try to soften this. I stared off into the distance, memories flashing through my mind like cruel highlights of a life I no longer recognized, his first steps, teaching him how to ride a bike, bedtime stories, scraped knees and soccer games. All of it, suddenly in question. Rachel hesitated, then said, "There's more you need to know." My head snapped toward her. More. She nodded slowly, swallowing hard. The man, his real father, he didn't just disappear. He's still around. My blood ran cold. You mean I could have known all along? Rachel hesitated, guilt carved into every feature. Emily had contact with him for a while. After your son was born. Just a few letters. Maybe a visit or two. But she cut it off. She promised me she did. The betrayal deepened. She kept him in our lives. I asked, my voice rising. While lying to me? She said it was to make peace with the past. That she wanted to be sure he wouldn't interfere. She made him promise not to reach out. And he agreed? I asked bitterly. Rachel hesitated again. He agreed, for a while. I narrowed my eyes. Wait. What does that mean? Her voice dropped to a whisper. I think he may have tried to contact your son recently. There were some strange messages. Emily got scared. I stared at her, heart pounding. Everything I thought was buried was now clawing its way to the surface. And if what Rachel said was true, this mystery man wasn't just part of Emily's past. He was still out there. I drove home in silence. The house felt like a museum of a life that suddenly wasn't mine anymore. The wedding photos on the wall mocked me. The scent of her perfume still lingered in the hallway. And upstairs, in his room, my son, our son, was sleeping soundly. I stood at his door for a long time, just listening to him breathe. Biology or not. I had raised that boy. But the truth was now a blade stuck between the ribs of my memory, twisting every second I thought had been real. I went downstairs, poured myself a drink, and sat in the dark. My phone buzzed. A message. From an unknown number. We need to talk. I never wanted to hurt anyone. But I won't be erased. D. I stared at the message, my stomach tightening. Was this him? The man? Emily's secret, the biological father? I typed back. Who is this? The reply came instantly. You already know who I am. I gave her a choice. She chose silence. But now that she's gone, he deserves to know the truth. My blood turned to ice. He was coming for my son. And I didn't even know his name. But I was going to find out, and fast. Because if this man thought he could just walk in after 17 years and rip my family apart, he had no idea who he was dealing with. The next morning, I didn't go to work. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at that text over and over. He deserves to know the truth. Who did this guy think he was? Just because he shared some DNA didn't mean he got to rewrite our lives. I forwarded the number to a friend of mine, Marcus, a cybersecurity analyst. A guy who could trace just about anything. Within an hour, he called back. Ethan. I got a name. Daniel Cole. Lives 2 hours out of the city. Has no criminal record, works freelance construction. Quiet life. But here's the thing, he's been following your son's social media accounts for at least a year. Quietly. No comments. Just, watching. I clenched my jaw. So he'd been lurking. Waiting. I drove. Fast. Daniel lived in a modest house at the edge of a wooded town, the kind of place where neighbors mind their own business. I parked across the street and waited. And then, I saw him. Tall. Mid-40s. Broad-shouldered. He stepped out onto the porch with a coffee in hand. Calm. Too calm. I crossed the street. My footsteps loud on the gravel. Daniel? I asked coldly. He turned slowly, as if he knew I'd come. I figured you'd show up, he said, not surprised in the slightest. You've got a lot of nerve messaging me, I snapped. You had your chance 17 years ago. I never had a choice, he replied, voice steady. Emily shut me out. You think I was okay with that? You stayed quiet all these years. Why now? His eyes darkened. Because my son has a right to know who he really is. I stepped forward, barely keeping control. He's my son. I raised him. You don't just get to swoop in now and play hero. I'm not trying to take him away, Daniel said. But he's old enough to ask questions. And when he does, he deserves honest answers, not your anger. I was seething. I don't owe you anything. But if you come near him without my say, so help me, you'll regret it. Daniel didn't flinch. This isn't about you. Or even about me. It's about him. So you can keep trying to control the narrative, or you can let him decide who he wants to be. I turned and walked away, fists clenched. I wasn't going to lose my son. Not to a ghost. Not to a stranger. But deep inside, I knew something terrifying, he would ask questions. And soon, that night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind outside, haunted by the weight of everything I hadn't said, and everything I was about to lose. In the morning, my son, Nathan, came downstairs, rubbing his eyes, his backpack slung over one shoulder. Dad, he asked, noticing the look on my face. You okay? I forced a smile. Yeah, just didn't sleep much. He nodded, grabbed a banana, and turned to leave. Then he paused. Hey, who's Daniel? I froze. What did you say? I got a message from some guy named Daniel. Said he knew Mom. That he wanted to talk to me. Do you know him? My heart dropped. I walked over and gently took his phone from his hand. There it was, the message. Hi Nathan. I know this may sound strange, but I knew your mom a long time ago. I'd like to talk to you about her, if that's okay. There was no mention of being his father. Not yet. But the door had been opened. I looked at Nathan. His brow furrowed. He was confused. Curious. What's going on, Dad? He asked softly. Who is he? I had two choices. Lie, and risk him hearing the truth from a stranger. Or tell him, and risk breaking his heart. I sighed and sat down at the table. Nathan, there's something I need to tell you. Something about your mom. And about where you came from. His eyes widened. Is this about adoption or something? I shook my head. No. You're not adopted. But, the man who messaged you, Daniel, he's your biological father. Nathan blinked. He didn't speak. The silence was crushing. I didn't know either, I added quickly. Not until this week. Your mom kept it secret from both of us, in different ways. He stared at the table, his face pale. So, you're not really my dad, he whispered. I am your dad, I said firmly. I'm the one who raised you. Who stayed. Who taught you how to ride a bike, helped you with homework, sat through every school play. That doesn't change because of a blood test. Nathan didn't respond. He stood up slowly, his voice quiet but shaking. I need to think. And just like that, he walked out. Leaving me alone in the kitchen. Feeling like I'd just lost everything. Hours passed. I sat in that same chair, the silence around me louder than any argument we'd ever had. Nathan didn't text. Didn't call. And I didn't chase him. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But I knew he needed space to process. To breathe. To understand that the world he trusted had just cracked open under his feet. When the door finally opened just after sunset, I stood immediately. My heart pounding like I was facing a verdict. Nathan walked in slowly, his face unreadable. His eyes were red. He sat across from me without saying a word. Finally, he spoke. I met him. The words hit like a punch to the chest. You what? I asked. I met Daniel, he said again, calmly. I took the address from your phone. Drove there. He knew I would come. I dropped into the seat across from him, stunned. What did he say? Nathan looked at me, his voice even. He said he tried to reach out to Mom years ago. That she told him to stay away. He said he respected her wishes until she passed. That he didn't want to cause trouble. Just wanted to know me. I clenched my jaw. Did he say why he waited 17 years? Nathan nodded. Yeah. He said he hoped I'd have a good life without the complications he would bring. That you were a better father than he ever could have been. That stopped me. Nathan's eyes softened slightly. He even called you the real dad. Said he'd never try to replace you. I looked down, emotions boiling just beneath the surface. Nathan continued, I asked him what he wanted now. He said, nothing. Just a chance to know me. Not to take anything from you. Silence settled between us. Then Nathan leaned forward, his voice low but steady. I don't know what to think, Dad. I'm still processing. But I want you to know. I don't love you any less. That hasn't changed. I couldn't speak. I just reached across the table and gripped his hand tightly. You're my son, I whispered. And nothing will ever change that. He nodded. But I could still see the storm in his eyes. This wasn't over. Daniel had said he wanted nothing. But I knew better. No one just steps into your life after 17 years, without wanting something more. The days that followed were tense. Nathan was quieter. Distant, but not cold. We still had dinner together, still exchanged small talk, but the bond between us now felt fragile. Like glass under pressure. And then, late one night, I heard the front door click. I checked the time. 11:42 p.m. I crept downstairs and peeked out the window. Nathan was in Daniel's car. They were talking. For over an hour. I didn't interrupt. I wanted to, every second of it. But I stayed hidden, fists clenched at my sides, watching the boy I raised sit beside the man who'd been nothing but a ghost for nearly 2 decades. The next morning, Nathan came into the kitchen. Before I could say a word, he spoke. He asked if I wanted to spend a weekend with him. Get to know him. Just the two of us. My heart sank. And what did you say? I asked, voice tight. I told him I'd think about it. I nodded slowly. And what do you want? He looked conflicted. I don't know. I want answers. I want to know where I come from. But I also don't want to hurt you. You won't, I said, lying through my teeth. He gave a weak smile. You already seem hurt. Because I was. Every second he spent with Daniel felt like losing inches of ground in a war I never signed up for. But I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to guilt him. That wasn't what a father did. I just said, whatever you choose, I'll still be here. He nodded. Then quietly walked out, leaving me once again in the shadow of a man I never saw coming. But that afternoon, something changed. I got a letter. No stamp. No return address. Just my name, in careful handwriting. Inside, was the truth. From Emily. Dated 3 weeks before she passed. And what she wrote would change everything. My hands trembled as I unfolded the letter. The paper was delicate, almost fragile, like it had been written with the weight of 1,000 unspoken words. It began simply, Ethan, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. And I'm sorry. I'm so deeply, painfully sorry. I sat down, the room spinning around me as her words spilled across the page. There's something I should have told you years ago. Something I tried to bury because I was afraid. Afraid of what it would do to you, to us, to Nathan. Yes, Daniel is Nathan's biological father. It happened once, before you and I ever met. We weren't even serious at the time, and he left not long after. I didn't know I was pregnant until later. And by then, you were already in my life, already holding me together in ways no one else ever had. You stepped up when no one asked you to. You loved me without conditions. You were there at every doctor's appointment. You built the crib with your own hands. You cried when he was born. And every day since then, you've been his father in every way that matters. I felt my throat tighten, tears stinging my eyes. I kept the truth from you not because I didn't trust you, but because I couldn't bear the thought of you looking at Nathan differently. I knew if I told you, you'd see him through someone else's eyes. And he doesn't deserve that. You gave him his values. His smile. His courage. Daniel may have given him life, but you made it worth living. Please don't let the past ruin what you two have. I know it's not fair. I know I should have told you. But if there's one thing I beg of you now, it's to forgive me. And to fight for the bond you and Nathan built together. Because that's real. And nothing Daniel says or does can ever replace it. With all the love I have left, Emily, I sat there, broken open. Angry. Relieved. Numb. But also, something else. Clarity. She had lied. But not to hurt me. She had lied to protect us, in her own imperfect, desperate way. And now the only question left was, would I let Daniel rewrite the ending? Or would I take it back into my own hands? The next morning, I stood outside Daniel's house. I didn't knock this time. I pounded. He opened the door, surprised but calm, that same infuriating calm he always wore like armor. Ethan, he said cautiously. Didn't expect to see you again so soon. I held up the letter. From Emily. That got his attention. He stepped aside. Come in. I didn't sit. I read the letter aloud. Every word. Daniel stood still, arms folded, jaw clenched, as I reached the end. She made her choice, I said when I finished. You weren't pushed out. You were never in. You were a memory. A mistake. She didn't want you in his life. He exhaled, eyes narrowing. People change. Regret sets in. Maybe she was wrong. No, I snapped. She wasn't. I stepped forward. You think this is about biology? Genetics? Being a father is about showing up, Daniel. About every scraped knee, every school project, every nightmare at 2 a.m. He looked away for the first time. I'm not afraid of you, I continued. You can try to form some connection, and maybe Nathan will be curious. That's fine. But know this, you will never be his father. That title's taken. Permanently. Daniel nodded slowly, tension rippling in his shoulders. I'm not trying to erase you, Ethan, he said quietly. I'm trying to find a piece of myself. I paused. For the first time. I saw it. The weight in his eyes. The ache. But I wasn't here to make peace. I was here to draw the line. You want to talk to him? Fine. But it happens my way. My terms. You don't text him. You don't meet him alone. If he wants a relationship, it happens with boundaries, and respect for what's already built. Daniel didn't argue. He just nodded once. And for the first time, I left his house with my head high. Because for the first time, I felt like I had control again. 2 weeks later, Nathan and I sat together on the back porch. It was evening, the sky bleeding orange and violet, the kind of quiet that makes you feel everything more deeply. He broke the silence. I've been thinking a lot, Dad. I braced myself. I think I want to see Daniel again, he said softly. But I want you there too. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the boy I'd raised, and the young man he was becoming. Strong. Thoughtful. Brave. You sure? I asked. He nodded. He might be part of my story, but you're my home. I want to understand both parts. That was all I ever wanted, for him to choose with his eyes open. And he had. The first time we all sat down, me, Nathan, and Daniel, it was awkward. Careful. Like stepping across ice that might crack any second. But over time, something strange happened. We didn't become friends, not exactly. But we reached a quiet, fragile truce. Daniel didn't try to claim more than he was offered. And I didn't try to erase the parts of Nathan that were curious about him. We made space. And in that space, Nathan grew. He asked hard questions. Got hard answers. And through it all, I stayed beside him. One night, months later, he came to me after dinner. I get it now, he said. DNA is biology. But fatherhood is choice. And you've chosen me every single day of my life. I didn't cry. Not then. But I held him longer than I had in years. Emily was gone. Secrets had shattered everything we thought was certain. But we rebuilt something stronger. Not perfect. But real. And in the end, that was more than enough.